Okay. We're now Main South Road, Goldhurst, Riccarton, safety improvements. Fire away. Turn your mic on.
Sorry, this is the second briefing on this project. The recurring crash type is attributed to the current design of the intersection, particularly with people turning right from Main South Road into Riccarton Road. Although the visibility of oncoming traffic travelling west on Riccarton is clear to drivers waiting on Main South Road, the combination of the curve in the road and the two westbound lanes attribute to poor perception of vehicle speed and gap selection by traffic waiting to exit Main South Road. Through the public consultation process on this proposal, 302 submissions were received. Of the submitters who answered the question about how safe they feel using the current layout at the Main South Goldhurst Riccarton intersection, 58.6% perceived it as somewhat or very unsafe. In terms of active users, Church Corner area includes Bush Inn Centre, Church Corner Mall, churches, schools, Canterbury University is just to the north with student accommodation, and all of these generate foot traffic. So there needs to be a safer access for people to cross Riccarton Road. A notice of motion was approved in April 2024, which revoked the Community Board's previous decision for officer recommendations on traffic controls, including a request for staff to provide information on alternative options at the intersection and for the decision to be made by council. Staff have undertaken further investigations to assess options for improvements. 4 options were originally developed, which were independently assessed for safety and network effects and were presented at the briefing on the 6th of August. Further refinements have been made following the independent assessments, resulting in 2 additional options that would be safer and more efficient than the original 4 options. Option A removes the right turn and remains the preferred option. Option B retains the right turn. The following options were also considered, but were not assessed as being reasonably practicable. Options 1 to 4 from the initial assessment, the cul-de-sac option, and a trial layout. A full signalisation of the intersection has been raised as a possibility, and so we've got further information on that to discuss. Staff recommend option A as this presents the lowest risk option to all road users as it removes the right turn from Main South into Riccarton, eliminating the current crash risk. It provides a signalised crossing for people walking and cycling on Riccarton Road. The signal control crossing would provide a safer and more efficient option than the original zebra. It also includes improvements for people who cycle to and through the area by providing a cycle lane on the southern side of Riccarton and Goldhurst Road. So options 1 to 4 that were presented in the last workshop have been ruled out, as has the cul-de-sac and the additional trial layout. We can discuss the possible signalisation as well. So option A and B are fundamentally the same design, with the exception of the right turn. In option A, the median crosses over, so you can no longer make the turn. In option B, the right turn is retained through a more standard intersection layout. This option, this table on your screen is provided within the full report that comes to council, but just provides some high-level differences between the two. So option A removes the right turn, option B retains. There's minimal impact to traffic on the network, as traffic would divert to other routes to access destinations. Mitigate serious crash incidences. Again, option A eliminates, whereas option B manages. The dual crossing is provided through a signalised crossing, and again, that is more efficient than the original zebra. Traffic calming is provided, again, just to mitigate any crash incidences, and the cycle facilities are also included.
Like just for the west travelling, just for
it's just a pedestrian crossing.
Just a pedestrian,
no,
yeah.
So it stopped both directions of traffic. but it'd only stop traffic if a pedestrian was there to put a demand in.
I thought you were putting lights in for a right turn.
Yeah, I thought that's what we'd asked for.
Yeah, so we're just getting to that. We're just
sorry,
running
sorry,
through where
sorry,
we got
sorry.
to. That's all right. We'll get there. Sorry, it's a quick.
Got to be really clear when you're talking about signals, whether it's for pedestrian
Or the
cars.
car.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
good-
So this
good
is
point.
just pedestrian and cycle signalised crossing. Yeah. Where are we? So an independent analysis has been completed by external consultants. Unfortunately, they weren't able to be here today with us, but will be able to attend the decision-making meeting. The purpose of the review was to demonstrate the network effects of the options and how this might impact on people who drive through the area. The greatest impact occurs during the morning peak, so only that has been provided today. These images replicate what the modelling has shown. Intuitively, you would expect that when you remove a turn, people would automatically switch to the adjacent intersection. So the 200 trips shown on the top left, intuitively, you would think that they would all move over. However, as people adjust their behaviour, and as shown on the right-hand side, that isn't the case. And there are multiple alternative routes to access the supermarket, Church Corner, the mall, the University of Canterbury, and Central Riccarton. So here it shows people can use Curlett's Pier, Hanson's, Middleton, if destination south of Riccarton, Whanganui, and Matipo, all depending on where the final destination is. So signalisation. This option wasn't provided at the last workshop, but further information was requested on this option. So what happens when the intersection is fully signalised? Delays increase for all road users on all approaches. The traffic modelling has shown that when people travelling along Yoldhurst and Riccarton Road would experience around 11 extra seconds delay, and people wanting to exit Main South Road would experience delays of around 37 seconds. So while traffic would be required to stop for the pedestrian and cycle crossing, this would only happen when demanded. When fully signalised, this would occur every signal cycle. Riccarton Road is a priority bus corridor, and the delays could start to affect reliability or increase people's journey times with the fully signalised option. In addition, these delays would occur all through the day, not just at peak periods, as the signal cycle would need to work through each of its phases. The modeller noted that those higher delays do make people divert away from the main roads onto alternative routes as they try to find the quickest route. We haven't had a conversation with the community about this option of full signalisation, and due to the change in level of service for all users, full consultation would be required. Currently, vehicles travelling eastbound from Main South Road west of Curlett's to Riccarton Road generally take about 30 seconds quicker than travelling via Curlett's and Yoldhurst. Fully signalising Main South Riccarton Yoldhurst will add significant delay to the Main South Road approach, such that there is negligible difference in travel time between the two routes. That's the main presentation finished. We're happy to take lots of questions.
Okay. So first of all, we've got Mark, and then Victoria, then Andre. Kelly.
Thank you.
Kelly.
And thank you for your ongoing work on this. We do appreciate it, even if we don't always acknowledge it. I guess there's an elephant in the room which has cropped up since the last time we talked, and that's the traffic islands outside Woolworths that have really impeded the flow. Is there any way through what we're doing here to look at revisiting those islands to allow them to do their job, but not to impede the exit onto Main South?
So I think there possibly is, depending on which option we look at. So one of the issues for people turning right from Main South is that people are late lane changing. So when you're turning right, you're assuming that someone's going to turn left, and then they don't, they carry on, and people have already exited and it causes a crash. If the right turn was removed, then there's potential to reopen that left turn lane quicker, so that you can make that turn, because the person turning isn't turning right from Main South Road.
Is there any way to potentially have a concrete island similar to what we've got on the reverse seagull now, quite a narrow, to stop that movement across to the right.
So the only issue is the countdown access, in that it would be limit if you were to turn left out of Woolworths, you would then be limited to which way you could go, which you'd have to turn.
Yep, which
left
is
down
kind of what
South
we're
Road.
Exactly.
trying to solve. I'm looking at your options. There was a previous option too, which had the extravagant pedestrian crossing in the middle between the left and the right. Is there any opportunity to have that sort of reworked, to have the signalised crossing there instead of that pedestrian in between the two movements?
So retaining the current layout but trying to accommodate a pedestrian crossing is very difficult. It was ruled out because it was the least safe option in the independent safety analysis. Hence why we've got to a more standard T intersection.
Okay, and if we do need to go with the more standard T intersection, is it possible to get 2 lanes, so there's a left and a right lane, rather than just 1 lane, which is going to be a huge bottleneck there?
So the number of left turning movements is actually very low. There isn't a huge demand at all for that left turn. The right turn has been moved over into the left to increase the space between the exit and the signalised crossing, because we know from other signalised crossings around town that if it's too close to the turn, that people end up going through on a red light, which then reduces the safety for people walking and cycling.
Yep. Okay, and I'm gathering you've discounted the idea of doing any trial of closure of the right turn to try and, perhaps prove your point that it's not going to cause any significant delays, because anyone who's been in that area during peak hours would clearly tell you that there is huge congestion and an impossible movement anywhere in Curlitz, let alone trying to turn right out of Curlitz.
Yeah. So the option of the trial was discounted in that the setup costs for 2 traffic management sites at Curlitz and at this intersection would be quite high. This is being funded from the Minor Road Safety Programme, so that does affect potential other projects going through. However, at lunchtime, we thought that possibly you could build option B, put bollards through the flush median and effectively do a trial with the constructed option, which means that we can get out and build it. We'd put some bollards through the median so you couldn't turn right initially. And then after 6 months, 12 months, that we could reassess what's actually happened on the network, whether the modelling has materialised. And then you could do some extra conversations with the community to reintroduce the right turn. That would be a compromise, I guess.
Honestly, I don't think you'd need 6 months to prove or disprove this.
But that, I
action.
guess we do, because normally traffic patterns take around that time to settle, and for people's behaviours to change. So that would be an option.
Okay, thank you.
Victoria?
Thank you. Supplementary to what Mark's just said, did I hear you correct that it is an option to do a trial using the bollards as opposed to the TMP? Is that what you've said?
No, sorry. So under a trial under the existing arrangement, we would need to put a TMP in place at this intersection and at Curlitz Main South, which is where the substantial cost comes in if we wanted to run it for a couple of weeks. The trial that I've just talked to Councillor Peters about is looking at building option B, which puts everything in place, but where you have the blue stripy median between the 2 islands, you could place some bollards in there, and that would limit the right turn initially, but then you could assess what happens on the network. If then we needed to, we could just remove the bollards at a lower cost than doing the TMP option.
Okay, yeah, thank you for that. I understood that now. I'm a regular user of this area. I've got a daughter at Villa Maria, and I have to say as a driver, one of the biggest hazards for me is kids just crossing willy-nilly all over the place because of the schools. So at any point in time, did you consider putting pedestrian barriers up through centre lines on the road to try and prevent or eliminate that particular hazard? Have you ever looked at that?
So we have, in as much as research, we haven't tested it as much necessarily on Christchurch roads, although I think Old Winds probably has some outside Hayata. But internationally, the research has shown that they can create as many problems as they solve, with children climbing over the fences to get to where they still want to go.
I think that's debatable. I know
And that's why
myself,
the
whenever I've
signal-
seen these islands in the middle of the road, I walk the extra block to cross. Are we using it anywhere in Christchurch? Did you say
I think the
Haiata
only,
Islands at Stafford Islands and
outside Te Aratai? And do we have any research or actually evidence available now from this this in place elsewhere across the city?
not at present. It's something that we can look into for you if you think that that would be an option.
Because it does seem to me, I know that when you ask the question, what is this problem we're trying to solve? And I know that there's multiple issues here with drivers and pedestrians, but in terms of trying to mitigate, even eliminate some of it, it just seems a starkingly obvious one to me that we need to look at, and surely it'll be a hell of a lot cheaper than some of the other options we're looking at. The other question I just wanted to check was, am I correct that there's a couple of pedestrianised, signalised pedestrian crossings already in that area?
No, there is the traffic signals crossings are at Pier Yolthurst.
Yep.
And then there's one at Rickerton Hanson's Waimari on the right side of the intersection.
And those are the main areas closest to the two schools where a lot of the kids are crossing anyway.
Correct.
So a combination of those signalised crossings and a median barrier could rule out a hell of a lot of danger.
It does, but there is still a demand for people to cross the road at this location, and we have observed it on site. The medical centres there, we've had the deputations at the community board as well, that people are cycling up through the South Express Cycleway and they want to get to Church Corner, and there isn't that facility for them to be able to do that. So the signalised crossing in the notice of motion was to address the comments in the feedback and through the deputation.
Okay, so just for my own clarity then, the signalised crossing is only going to be activated when there's a pedestrian there to push the button.
Correct.
Thank you.
Right, Andre.
Thank you. I mean, the problem trying to solve here is the car's getting T-boned basically on average every 6 weeks or so. What I'm looking at here in option B, are you able to touch on what makes option B safer than the status quo and those right turns? I mean, I'm looking at presumably much better visibility, there'll be lower speeds. You're able to touch on some of the other features that make option B safer than the status quo.
sure.
Yep, so option B, you've really kind of picked out the main two. It does, having the traffic calming slows people down as they're coming towards that right turn. So any crash that was to occur would be minor or non-injury, hopefully, and just be vehicle damage crashes.
Yeah.
There is still the risk of a crash occurring. And as the delays increase for that right turn, people may choose shorter gaps to try and cross, to get out and cross the road. So there is still risk around option B.
And option B, so when someone's wanting to turn right, are they having to go straight to the lane? Do they have somewhere where they can?
No, they would be turning right into the eastbound lane.
Straight into the lane?
Correct.
So they're not able to just hover in the middle there while they've got a gap, they've got to go straight in?
Correct.
Okay. And are there other features you think that are going to more ultimately make it safer than the status quo besides just visibility and speed? Are there warning signs? Are there?
It would still be controlled by a give way. We've tried to slow everyone down coming into the intersection.
Yeah.
And so the likelihood of a crash still remains, but the significance of the crash would be reduced.
Yeah, the big factor there is the angle of impact.
Yeah.
Whereas at the moment, because of the sort of slack right turn, cars are almost, it's not really a T-bone crash anymore. It's closer to a head-on crash.
Yeah. And it's the speed limit?
It's 50.
And that would be changing?
Under the new rule, we could possibly look at a 30 kilometers intersection speed zone. But it only came out yesterday. I haven't had a chance to read the rule yet.
And sort of irrespective of the set speed limit, the traffic calming is going to be enforcing the speed anyway. So whether it's posted as a 50 or a 30, the speeds through the intersection are likely to be closer to 30 anyway.
Yeah, and presumably you've got a narrow road there, which naturally slows vehicles down. So, okay, cool, thank you. Right,
I'll throw some in for a start. In my view, I went down there and stood on the grass the other day, met lovely resident, very informed. I cannot believe the Woolworths, those islands, they need to be taken out instantly. I don't care about cars coming out of Woolworths. If they come out of Woolworths, turn left, they can't go up towards Shelterhurst. They can only go towards Sockburn. That's their problem. They'll go round the road anyway. That in my view, if you're leaving the Hanson's Lanes traffic lights heading out of town, the left-hand lane goes straight ahead to Sockburn and the right-hand lane goes to Yalthurst. That's simple. There's a lot of traffic goes out there. Coming into town, coming out where we're doing the right-hand turn and just following on what Andre said, why are we just not signalising the right-hand turn so that they can get into the slip lane and leave the slip lane there that's been there for years, still have it signalised for the pedestrians right across the road. So the only time traffic would stop if it's coming from Yalthurst into town would be when someone pressed the button for a pedestrian or a cyclist. Other than that, that left-hand lane coming into town would not change. The only bit that would change would be traffic lights to allow people to get out of the west side road and turn right into the slip lane. That's the bit, and that's the bit I would like to see. I've seen a picture along the lines of this, but I haven't seen it in front of me. And getting back to Woolworths, say there's 10, say there's 20 cars a day, while we're shagging around playing with that just for them, when the other system could help us with 200 cars a day is something that we should do. The answer, in my view, is to signalise half of it for cars, all of it pedestrians and cycleways. We have got tight. Okay, righto. Yeah, far away, sorry.
No, was that a question? Okay. So in trying to signalise over a seagull a half seagull arrangement, which is what we call what's there on site at the minute, would require pedestrians to cross quite a significant length of Rickerton Road. We would then be holding it westbound traffic regardless, because they would have to stop, and the right turn, kind of similar to B but exaggerated, is that they're turning onto a pedestrian crossing. We still wouldn't be addressing the right turn crash issue, which is the biggest problem at the intersection.
You should, because the light would be red. They wouldn't go unless it was green into the slip lane.
So they were going into the slip lane, but then we'd be asking them to stop immediately if a pedestrian is crossing, and that's some of the issues that we have.
Move them across, have them all together. That picture I've seen can do it. Sorry, carry on. Yep.
So the if we're referring to option 2, which was in the safe system audit, that was ruled out as the least safe option, and that's why it wasn't. So pursued. Traffic
lights are the least safe option. I don't really care how much traffic lights cost. If it's the right thing to do for this intersection, just put traffic lights in my view.
What we could do is we could come back and when we come to the decision meeting, we could give you some statistics on how that would operate from a modelling point of view.
Because that picture there, I see option B up there. There is, just correct me if I'm wrong, at the moment, there's no traffic lights there for the cars. There's traffic lights for the cyclists and pedestrians. Is that right?
Correct.
Yep.
Okay.
And there's no slip lane.
And there's no slip lane. So I'd like to see traffic lights for the people turning right and keep the existing slip lane, and all the cars coming from Yalthurst just quietly cruise on into town like they have been doing for the last 50 years.
Yeah, it would have an impact on outbound traffic.
Outbound going to Yalthurst?
Yes.
Yes, but not outbound going to Sockburn?
Not as much.
No, okay. Yeah, but if that's the price they pay. Okay, sorry. Did I say Tyler? Did you talk? You've done your thing? Where you go?
To the team. I'm really open, surprisingly to everyone here. I'm very open around the potential changes and what they may look like. There has been some kickback around the traffic islands, which the community board voted for outside Countdown. And I'm keen to see what alternatives there are through them yet. But I think, excuse me, there may be some middle ground in regards to seeing how you can get into that left lane with no airball traffic flow by trying to uphold that safety. But looking at the last models that you had, they didn't look very feasible. So I completely understand that from that regard. But I'm happy to put that towards the council to get them to make the decision. Hence why I brought the notice of motion here, because I knew you guys are awesome enough to take a look at it. The next one is the
differentials in risk between the current right-hand turn there and removing the right-hand turn. What's the percentage? Did you guys do some modelling yet on what that looks like?
Not from a safety perspective. So the safe system assessment that was undertaken looked at all 4 original options. And so 1 and 4 removed the right turn, that eliminated the risk. Option 3 was then the next preferred option in terms of retaining the right turn. And the least safest option was what's currently there with adding pedestrian crossings into it. But we haven't got percentages as such. There's a table in the report that was included in the last presentation that looked at the kind of percentage changes. And that will be in the final report to council as well.
Which is happening in
the 16th of October,
Great.
ideally.
So the next question is around the stakeholder representation. And this is probably for you guys up top, but from what we know, just for public knowledge too, we have Villa Maria, Te Kaipēhu Primary School, Aveda Retirement Village, Riccarton High School, and St. Peter's Kindergarten, who got St. Peter's at the back here. Would we be able to get an insight on what they said in regards to the consultation?
Yes, all the consultation feedback relating to this intersection is provided in the council upcoming report.
So it will be coming in there.
Correct.
Great, thank you. And the last question is if we're able to bring all of those together and see what options are there. I'm really open, I'm just letting everyone know this, to see what provisions there can be to make sure that there's safer for drivers, most importantly, because if you refer back to slide 1, that was actually a photo that I took. So I've seen 4 so far, and I quite frequently use an intersection. So the first one is that. The second one is obviously the pedestrian crossing. And what I'm noticing, and I'm there quite a lot, everyone will know this, is you're seeing elderly, multicultural whānau, particularly the Chinese whānau, who actually bring their grandchildren and they use those traffic islands to cross in that area playing traffic chicken. So if there are some provisions to make that area safer on that traffic island where they use that as a commute, that would be great. But if not, I completely understand. I'm going to follow the experts and you guys know best. So it'd be cool to see what comes in front of us, and happy to talk about it. Cheers.
Thank you, mate. Kelly.
Thank you. The only thing I'm struggling to understand is the need for the crossing there, the pedestrian crossing, and because it doesn't currently exist. And have you any idea on the number of incidents involving pedestrians? I see one, was it 3 involving bikes, over the last sort of 9 years or so, but have you got any data on pedestrians?
So there's been 1 pedestrian crash in the 10-year period that was assessed.
Okay. Yeah, because my thoughts would be that actually we're introducing pedestrians now into an intersection that is already quite busy, and obviously they'll be protected by lights at some expense, but considering there's only been 1 incident in 10 years, is that, what's our rationale for no incidents would be great.
So the signalisation came, the original consultation plan had a zebra crossing in that location.
Right.
We have observed people cross, even though there's no facilities there now, we have observed people crossing at that location, but also between Pier Yoldhurst and Riccarton Hansons, the crossing facilities are quite poor. So having the signalised, originally the zebra crossing was to help facilitate people get across the road, because that's what we people have kind of asked for. We changed it to a signalised one when through the deputations there were requests for cyclists to be able to cross at that location as well. And because Riccarton Road is a busy corridor as well as our strategic bus corridor, we changed it from a zebra to signal, so that when a zebra crossing's in place, when a pedestrian turns up, everyone's legally required to stop. That could happen quite frequently, whereas with the signals it can be managed better. So there is I guess we call it latent demand for people to be able to cross the road. And so that's why we've got the crossing in that location, to make it safer for people who are doing it now.
So, I mean, just to follow up on that, you said that the others intersection, the other crossings weren't really adequate. Wouldn't it be a good idea to look at making them more adequate, then rather than adding a third crossing, because you've obviously got the Oldhurst Main South, or not Main South, whatever that one is going across the top. Would you consider that at all? But rather just to take those the extra people out of the intersection, if you like.
So we have improved the crossing next to the bus stops by reducing the traffic lane down to 1 lane westbound and having the 2 lanes eastbound, because a lot of people are crossing at that location. It's not ideal by any means, and there's quite a lot of elderly that do it. Traffic stops for them occasionally, and the one outside the medical centre is quite difficult to use, even for able-bodied people. Out on site, it has been tricky to cross. We can widen the median to give more space, but the problem with crossing at this location is the speed of the westbound vehicles as well. And you have the same problem with the traffic turning right, is you're trying to assess where traffic's going because not everyone indicates.
Yes, yeah, no, good point. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, thank you, and appreciate the work you're doing on this, because it's one of those ones I think is a lot more complicated than it seems. And I totally get the signalised crossing here, because in my area, if you look at, say, the Beckenham shops, which are on Colombo Street, there'd be, 150 metres between the 2 signals, and so many people just dodge the traffic of all ages. So, if you're looking at the Pierce Street, Oldhurst intersection distance between that to the Hanson's Lane, I mean, that's a huge distance, and it's incredible. So I totally get the crossing. First question is, with the crossing on the main South Road to get to the crossing, that's not signalised.
Correct.
So is that the volume of traffic going through there? Would that be, because if you've got an elderly or a young or a family with a pram or whatever, the main South Road travelling west would be as complicated, especially if you've been shopping, etc., just to get to that green space to get to the signalised. So is that going to be looked at, or is that, if we're talking about safety?
Correct. So on Main South Road, they would just be crossing the 1 westbound lane. We've added in some traffic calming to keep everyone nice and slow. Originally, we did have a zebra crossing. This intersection has been value engineered to try to keep it as low cost as possible, because it does sit within the minor road safety program, which needs to cover a lot of projects. So it can always be upgraded in future, but for now we're suggesting it's a non-priority crossing, but with the traffic calming to slow people down, just so it doesn't feel as I guess scary as it can do now.
I think, look, if we could look at that in the future, because the driver behaviour is a lot more selfish than it has been in the past. I don't think people care about the communities they drive through. They just want to get somewhere. After listening to people on the radio, they were all experts at drivers, but when you watch them in your community, it's a different killer fish. On the B, turning right, it seems it's more dangerous now than it would be. I know that you've got traffic calming and the lights, but if you're travelling from Oldhurst Road into Riccarton, there's really about 3 car spaces. So the cars coming from the main South Road on to Riccarton, Oldhurst, it's almost like, in a sense, passively designed so they don't use it. Would that be, because there's no slip lane or anything now?
There isn't. So the intention is that when you pull up to the give way, rather than just looking right and going now, is that you consciously have to watch for traffic and make a decision to turn safely into the intersection. Right. That is putting more on the driver than just looking right and going. But at the minute, 76 crashes have occurred because people aren't following the road rules. Okay. So the well, it's not passively designed to discourage you from turning right. However, if you want to turn right, it's probably easier and safer to do it from Main South into Curlitz to turn right under the green arrow to get to the Oldhurst Road.
Cool. Thank you very much.
Mark, then Sarah.
Thank you. Interesting to hear you mention the Oldhurst Pier, Curlitz just then, the right turn arrow. initially there were NZTA improvements that were going to happen at that intersection as well. I gather those are now completely off the table.
Correct.
So is there going to be, should the right turn disappear or become far more difficult because it's now a T intersection and therefore slower, is there going to be adjustments made to the traffic lights at the Aldhurst Pier Curlitz intersection and more stacking ability there to take the extra right turning traffic, so that it actually becomes achievable rather than impossible?
Yep. So from a safety perspective, we did look at the crash rates as to what's happening at Pier Aldhurst, and we got to the point where there was turning right towards Riccarton at Main South Aldhurst. There'd been the 76 crashes. At Pier Aldhurst, there had been 5. 4 of those occurred before 2017 when a green arrow was installed. So only one of that crash type has occurred at Pier Aldhurst since. In terms of traffic operations and signals, I will ask Lachlan to answer that question because, he's more aware of traffic signals.
So the system that controls the traffic signals, SCATS, will dynamically adjust the timing in response to how busy an approach is from the loop that's in the ground there. So if there's more traffic making that right turn, it'll be asking for more time, dependent on how that balances out on other approaches, that movement will get more time.
Right. So I know I've been at that right turn on a number of occasions and seen only 3 cars get through and there's still a whole stack behind them. So I'd hazard a guess that it isn't perhaps working as well as we think it is.
Okay, thank you. Tyler was right. We said it need longer than half an hour, didn't you, mate? But we've still got 4. Sarah.
Thanks so much for all your work in this. I just got a query, tiny little thing. Why do we have I know it's a slip lane officially, but why do we have can we put a stop sign there? Can we please put a stop sign there so that it actually indicates people they must stop, which means it's more likely whichever way they're going that they look. And I know
So in terms of stops and giveaways, there are certain requirements and warranties around what we put in and where. The visibility at this location is good, and so therefore it wouldn't warrant a stop. If we start putting in stop controls too often, then it kind of diminishes the effectiveness of the stop controls, which is what
do we know that though? Because people do have to stop and they can get pinned for if they don't. And so we've changed one recently at our community board where there was a giveaway and some issues with the cycleway there and those kind of things, and the board said, can we change it to a stop and stuff? Yep, sure. So we did. Like in this case where we know that people aren't actually looking, it would, like of any that I've seen, this one would probably make the most sense.
So we could look at a stop. That's absolutely fine. It's just whether drivers will continue to not stop at the control or give way at the control, because regardless of whether it's a give way or stop,
they're more likely to stop if it's a stop though. Yeah, but if we could look at that, that would be great.
Yeah.
I think that, if we're legally allowed to, it would be my preference, and it also puts more onus on those who didn't look properly or didn't stop and didn't do what they should do when it comes to prosecution and those kind of things too. So that would be my preference. Yeah, I've talked to someone from the medical centre who just wants all the crashes to stop, because it takes up a whole pile of their time at the medical centre that could be used treating patients and those kind of things when they've got their vests on and their brooms out and having to go out and clean up after those. So.
Phil, only because it's a public session and it's usually private. I should say I agree fully with Councillor Templeton.
Now, 1:58 on the 1st of October. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, you could. That won't help the signalised crossing. You're saying as well as?
I've already had all my questions answered on the other stuff. This is just me adding a little bit of extra what I thought we should do. No matter what happens with the other stuff, I still think we should put a stop sign there.
Mr. Moore.
Thank you. I mean, the designs option A and B are ultimately very, very similar. So hypothetically, if you're going option B, from what I can see, it looks as though it would be really bloody easy to just remove the right turn lane if it really wasn't working. Is that fair to say?
Correct. They're exactly the same in terms of design.
Yeah. So it would be a very simple, easy process if it really didn't work.
It would just be extra consultation that we've already done. Correct.
Yeah. Would need to reconsult on that.
Possibly, but I'll defer to our engagement advisor.
I would say that from the consultation that we've carried out, we do understand community views and preferences. It would be a case of whether we thought that those had changed over the interim period.
Yeah. Answer. Okay, thank you.
Okay, doke. Paulie.
Thank you. Look, I think that slip lane's quite good. I agree, stop sign would be excellent there. But how about if you come back here to where that toy library is, and sorry, Phil, but a couple of really hefty speed humps there, platforms there. No, but this is where they would work, because part of the problem is if you slow the cars down as they come round, the cars turning right into the slip lane have stopped and looked clearly. It seems to me. And there is also a concrete median strip there that you could put a pedestrian, just a couple of those rails on to help them if they get halfway over. The original issue was cars T-boning at the right turn and the straight ahead. We seem to have flipped it all to pedestrian crossings here. So for me, I'm thinking, could we trial the stop sign, slowing traffic down that are travelling westbound back towards from where the toy library is, so that they're slowing down around that bend, and trial that before we do anything else? Could we do that? Perhaps we need to just price up a couple of the, I mean, you'd have to agree to a speed.
That's right.
But, I mean, this is a place where
we've got
they're
to try
appropriate.
stuff. And still, and the thing that, and sorry, I'm butting in here, the thing that I'm really keen on is still having that free lane without those things that count down Woolworths straight out to Sockburn, and do exactly what you're saying on the other bit. Okay, thank you, Pauline. Tyler, and that's the end of the half an hour over where we're going to be.
Yeah, I was just wanting to just two quick ones. The first one was the optional provision of clearly differentiating the right-hand turn and the left-hand turn through either hit sticks or some infrastructure. That's the key part there. That's always been quite the issue, because there's been last second right-hand turners. Is there a potential option for that to be additional to this? And then the traffic islands and countdown, which Phil would like to remove, can be pulled up?
I think we'd have to look at how we do that and whether that would need to go back to the community board for a decision, because the decision to put those islands in were made by the community board.
Yeah. I think they'd be very happy to remove those. But yeah, that's fine. That's cool. So the next question is actually the cycle lane itself. And for me, it just gives me a bit of as a cyclist, I get a little bit scared looking at that because of the traffic island that's there. And then if the cyclist does choose to follow through going westbound, I'd feel a little bit wary as a driver and as a cyclist doing that. Would you be able to explain the science behind that cycle lane going westbound towards Yalhurst?
Yes, so people are cycling westbound currently. The safe system audit that was undertaken identified that left turn over the cyclist as a risk, and recommended that the cycle lane be provided with the coloured surfacing, so drivers were more aware that people riding through this location are doing so. There was a serious crash involving a person riding a bike going west.
Yeah.
So it's really just to highlight that there are other road users there than just traffic.
I ironically saw one the other day, a near miss of a quite strong cyclist actually. He hit a car, but that was literally at that intersection right there. So you're saying that it's already happening, so you want to just let the driver know that the cyclist is going to be going through and following that lane. Okay, great, thanks.
Now, I did say the last one, but Mark has pleaded with me to do the shortest question out.
Well, it's not so much a question. Honestly, I'm really keen to get everyone safe here. So is there any possible way on this earth that we could look at the option 2 coming back into play with the signalised crossing in the middle in place of the pedestrian crossing that was previously there, because that I think would just about sum up everyone's wishes to get traffic moving, having people safe, and just trying to get that area right.
It is quite difficult to achieve that design and make it legible and safe for all users. We can relook at it, but it was the one that was the least safe option in the independent assessment. But yeah, absolutely fine. We can.
I'm just really keen that we don't
you put your
ruin this intersection for everybody.
Which is now lit up. Another question. Sarah, would you like to?
Sorry, I'm just aware that the more times we send you back for more design work, the more this costs, right? So the design work phase of all of these kind of things is quite resource intensive. I'm just quite keen to know what is overall the cheapest and safest thing to do. Option one, option A.
From the safest option for us, staff recommendation is to remove the right turn from Main South Road into Rickerton Road and to provide the signalised dual crossing that was requested as part of the notice motion.
Yeah. And if we do option B, which is putting the right one in, the right-hand turn still in, and then want to go back later and fill in the median and potentially consult or not, that would be another expense and another project on top of this one.
Not necessarily. It would just go. We've got the design. It would be a case of a contractor going out under TMP, possibly 2-3 nights, and filling in the median island.
Okay, but we could just put bollards up and.
So yeah, you could go with option B, put the bollards in, trial it. That would be another option, or you flip it and you allow the right turn, and if it doesn't work, then you could close it.
Thank you, but please don't lose sight of the slip lane. Thank you very much. See you later. Goodbye. Yes. Yeah, no, moving on. Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Good on you.
See whether the boss is coming up.
Finally. Kylie and Michelle. Good to see you. We're back again. Thank you. Right.
So councillors, just introducing Kylie and Michelle. You probably already know them anyway. This is the first part of some work they've been doing on the water supply strategy for Banks Peninsula. Now, just bear in mind, this part of it is the who and where we should be supplying. The second part will be the how, because the how will be influenced by what you see today and which communities, which settlements we should be supplying. So I'll hand it over to them and they'll take you through it.
Thanks, Brent. Right, into it. So we're going to talk today about Banks Peninsula water supplies and future service into currently unserviced areas. So just a reminder, this is about if, where and why we service a community, not how. So try and keep the large centralised pipeline schemes to one side and just think, should we? We're going to cover our statutory obligations to do these assessments and feed back to you what we found in the last round and where we might go next. So we have a statutory obligation, everyone in the room here, under the Health Act to satisfy any nuisance condition that may be injurious to health or offensive in the district. So if people have got water supply problems, that's a public health issue. All of us, yourselves and staff, have to address that. That's our statutory obligation. And then that's underpinned by the Local Government Act, which says that we have to periodically go out and check, are there areas that might need assistance? As the Department of Health or Te Aomata Arawai raised issues, what might the needs be? So if there's a significant problem or potential problem, we have to act. It doesn't always mean we have to reticulate water to places. There are the solutions, and the acts even say that reticulation is not necessarily the immediate solution. Of course, we can recover costs for doing this work from communities and rates. And we are not obliged to act if there isn't a public health issue. That becomes a sort of discretionary decision within council. So the area we're looking at today is the Banks Peninsula district, where we're not discussing the city or the peri-urban areas to the north and the east especially. So it's the Takiwā, Rapaki, Kokororata, Wairewa and Onuku. It's roughly an area of 1,000 square kilometres. There's a population of about 8,200 out there. So it's a big area with not many people. Where we have current supplies, it's just sort of useful to recap. So we reticulate into Littleton, Governor's Bay, Diamond Harbour from the city. All that water's pumped from our side of the hill through the tunnels and gets all the way up to Diamond Harbour. Akaroa runs on its own supplies from four streams and two bores over there. Little River, Cooptown area, they've got their own standalone scheme with one stream and two bores feeding it. Birdlings Flat and Pigeon Bay, Wainui have all got their own standalone schemes as well. Tikau Bay runs on a private scheme, and that's sort of notable because we do provide wastewater services there, but not water supply. So it comes up sometimes. We've currently got two projects underway, one for the Port Levy, Kokororata area to get a water supply into there, and one at O'Kane's Bay. So in the context of this presentation, just remember we've already got those ones on the go. It's looking beyond that. Currently, we service about 83% of the peninsula population. So the remaining 1,400 people are pretty widely spread.
Can I just a real, I don't want to interrupt, I just can't get, just Pigeon Bay, Takiwā is Kokororata.
Correct.
Yeah, just on the table it said Rapaki, that's all. Yeah.
Good spot. So just a word on how the existing supplies might hold up in the future with climate change, population growth, droughts, that sort of thing. We do watch our supplies every summer and our treatment capacity, and we make sure we're keeping an eye on those to be mindful of bringing on future supplies if they're needed. But we're also looking at demand management. So we're rolling out smart metering in Akaroa, which gives us daily water consumption. We can rapidly spot where there's a leak or where someone's using an obscene amount of water and make a call and find out what's going on. So that's going to be really interesting to see the rollout of this summer. And our plan and horizon is roughly 40 years ahead. So we're trying to what if out to about then, anything beyond that, and we're really stacking up the guesses and assumptions. So that's sort of the context of where we're looking. So what is a need? This was a question we had to sort of answer somewhat for ourselves, but a need for a water supply we're defining as a public health risk or issue. Is there a high household density or population density out there? Is there a peak population spike? Places like Marae, campgrounds, get a lot of people turn up and disappear for the other 11 months. They're still out there. Is there a community facility of some sort that needs water, like halls, churches, schools, things you wouldn't get in just a population or household sort of count? Is there a climate risk to existing supplies that people have privately, and is there a growth constraint? So is the area zoned for growth and we haven't got adequate supplies in there to support that? Things that we aren't considering a need, if individuals are having private issues maintaining their water supply for their sort of one house or farm, that's not community need, that's an individual. Or the other big one is if someone's thinking they want to put a big subdivision in the middle of the peninsula, put in 5,000 houses. That's a resource consent matter. We're not automatically going to provide them a supply straight off the bat. So we're keeping those off the table today. And finally, there's climate issues where we're going to potentially see inundation in certain areas, which may well be really good candidates, but we are cautious in how we approach those areas because it's going to have to be a bit of a holistic solution as to what we do there. So getting granular, we don't have any current public health notifications from Taumata Arawai or the former Ministry of Health people who moved over. We have had issues raised at O'Kane's Bay and Kokorata, and we're working through those with 2 live projects. And we've had operational work done with Inuku to support them in their private supply for the marae. At this stage, Inuku aren't asking for new infrastructure. They're just seeking a bit of technical help from our team. So the next part, household quantity and density. Where are all the people? So the map up on the screen there, the green dots are where all the houses are. And we've done this GIS mapping exercise where we've worked out where everyone lives and are they in an area which has already got water reticulation, which are all the pink bits. We've then grouped them down to about 20 community clusters, which is a bit unfortunate using that term after COVID. These are where we've got the houses all within sort of 80 to 100 metres of each other. Beyond that, they really spread out and it's going to become extremely hard to service them without spending a fortune. So this is sort of the short list, and you can see the population figures we're getting down to now of what's in these tiny communities. You know, very few houses, not many people in the grand scheme of it. It's just a wee explanation of where they sit. The bubble sizes are the size of or the number of residences, and you've got peak and holiday populations on the 2 axes. So it gives you a feel of who's got the most residents at what time of year. And those on this graph on the left, the ones in red are the areas we already service. So we've got the big ones. We're down to the very small individual little ones peppered about the place. So, you know, we have done the big ones. We're down to the fine bits now. Some of the key community facilities we identified, we've got community halls, maraes, churches, schools, campgrounds. So these are things that don't come up in the housing density analysis. They'd only appear as one house, but they might be a school of 40 kids. So that's in there as a good check and balance. And finally, these are the areas that aren't zoned rural out in the peninsula. They still have some potential for infill housing under the current plan. Not many, but they are out there. And lastly, these bits in orange are the potential inundation areas with climate change, because storms, sea level change, land subsidence, all the rest. So those are the areas where we're a little bit cautious of saying, hey, we should dive straight in here. They need a bit more thought. So we've sort of got a case for servicing of population concentrations. Where are their high visitor numbers, campgrounds, that sort of thing? Where's their community facilities? And on the other hand, what are the servicing risks? So inundation risks, cost, that's always a biggie, and climate disruption risks as well. So the question I want you to ask yourselves at this point in the slides is what's important? What should be a trigger to you as to where we go next, and what might hold you back? So hold on to that thought. This is my disclaimer on all cost estimates. So all love and no responsibility. But they are indicative, and any option we think we should continue with, it's going to need a proper engineering investigation before it gets close to the LTP. But I know you guys like costs, so we do have some in here. Just don't hold me to them. So first up, looking at areas of more than 100 people, permanent population. There's only one cluster on the peninsula that's not serviced that fits that bill, and that's Pūrao. There's 116 folk living there last census. Cost to bring water into that area is around the $6 to $8 million range. And we bring that water in from Diamond Harbour, subject to confirming we've got enough capacity in the cross harbour pipelines. So subject to some engineering challenges, that would be the only area of 100 people or more in one cluster. So scenario B would be those seasonal populations, the summer campgrounds, the places everyone goes over New Year's and Christmas, and they all disappear again a month later. So we're expanding the list here. We've got Okuti Valley, which has got the campground as well as quite a lot of lifestyle blocks scattered up there. Little Akaloa, big summertime population, and then they all disappear again by winter. And then Onuku, which of course has the marae. So that gets 200 people turning up, and then they'll all disappear again. So those are the 4 communities that sort of meet this criteria, and the cost of getting around them all could be 30 to 58 million, depending on if we go for standalone supplies or we try and reticulate from places like Devotional. So there's a few tunes you can play, but the costs get quite high. Scenario C, we really start expanding the list and go for places with growth or infill potential. And again, you can see the net widens, but the costs also escalate. And again, it depends, do we reticulate from a central location or maintain standalone supplies? Then scenario D, which you just target the community facilities, so schools, the marae, those types of things. Slightly different group of clusters come into the play here. So you get Allendale in particular, which is next to Governor's Bay, comes in. Segregated out the areas with potential inundation risks. So Le Bon's, which would otherwise score really highly in most criteria, it is in a big flood hazard area. So it's kind of a tricky one to crack, but put them up here for your information. And then scenario F, we basically service everything on the list. And at this point, costs are going north of $100 million for 440 people. And then finally, do the entire peninsula. And as you can see, the number of people you get compared to the previous, it's not a big jump, but the costs pretty much double. So it's a bit of an overview and some scenarios we trialed as to where we might go next, where are the people, how could we rate things, what's important, what's not. So this is sort of just the quick wrap up of it. We've looked at a wide range of scenarios. The question now is how far should we go in future? So I will bring up the last slide before questions, because I see there's a few hands going up. Currently, we aren't statutorily obliged to do anything. We don't have notification from Taumata Awai. We don't have a health issue. So one option is we don't have to proceed with anything new. Most of these schemes would be very expensive to roll out, and Three Waters plan and suggests that the cost of these new schemes outweighs the merits, but we're seeking feedback from you guys now. Do you think this is something we should extend, or do we sit tight until the next review in 2026 and keep our powder dry? So, questions? Okay, right, we've got 4 questions. We've got Timothy first.
Kind of more for Brent, really. Thank you very much for the information. But with the changes to the RMA and the discussions about being able to say no to development, could you leads into the same question I asked Mary. Are we now going to be able as a council to say no because to further development in certain areas because simply we cannot afford it or it is too dangerous?
Council, I'm going to have to get advice from John Higgins on that.
Because I asked the same question earlier to Mary, and I think we need to know that.
Pauline?
Just isn't there a later census out in 2018? And
It's
so
not yet available to us. It's probably a week or so, I heard today, until we get the detail that we
I think
need.
it'd be important to see that data to see if there's an increase and if so, where and how much, and it might have changed the priority. But when you're saying perhaps make a decision in 2026, that's what you're saying, like park this to possibly as one option.
Well, that's an option because we're obliged to do this every 3 years and we're trying to really step it up. So next time round will be a couple of years from now.
So we do have some budget, don't we, for Kokorarata and Nonuku at the moment? So you're just saying
O'Kane's,
yes.
O'Kane's.
Yeah, so those projects are in flight. They're not being challenged at this point. They just
Thank you.
trot along. Sarah.
Thanks. Just a couple of quick things. Robinson's Bay, is that captured by the devotional one? It's just not listed anywhere.
There is a bit Hammond Point that gets it. After that, Robinson's Bay is really dispersed. So there is a cluster at Hammond Point, which is a candidate, and we may be advancing that one as part of the Akara Waste.
Yeah, I didn't see it listed in any of the lists. If we could do that at some point, that would be useful. I know there was some conversations about water as part of the Akara hearings and those kind of things. If a private community supply falls over for whatever reason, are we obliged to pick it up?
If Taumata ROI asks us to, we're obliged to do something.
Yeah, okay. And is there the potential for residents to come to us and say, hey, we're a community, please service us?
They can raise it, and if they do, I'd suggest we got to see where they sit on this list. So
yeah,
if someone in French Farm says, hey, it'd be amazing if you took on our water supply and we don't have to do it ourselves, go for it. How is that sort of equitable with the people in Pūrau if we've decided we haven't got the coffers to do another scheme at this point?
Yeah, and that's it, right? So having a really clear idea of the processes for each individual assessment would be really useful, both for us and for the communities. So for example, some of them, like Robinson's Bay, most of those homes are on rainwater supply, occasionally from the creek. In the summer, if that dries up, they won't have a supply, and they'll argue that that's a public health issue. I don't know.
Robinson's Bay is a mix of springs and bores, and they've actually got quite a large scheme that was established by the council years ago and transferred ownership to the residents up the valley.
They have a residents private supply, so that needs to be listed in those then.
It's a private supply, but in this list we haven't included or excluded private suppliers. We've just looked at where the population is. Everyone not serviced by us has a private supply of one form or another, whether they're part of a collective or an informal agreement or got their own thing. This is more around where are the people as opposed to how do they currently get there.
Yeah, Anuku have their own supply as well. Which
but then there's a smaller number of permanent population there than there are Robinsons. So anyway, it'd be nice to include Robinsons in the picture. And there was one other thing that I saw on here. I didn't write it down because my name got called. No, I can't remember now. I'll come back if I.
So we could. Let's go down by what we said. We don't have to do it, but in places where there's community centres or something like that, we could supply a larger tank so that they can collect the water after the It gives them some water, because as you quite rightly said, the cost of recirculating water there would be.
Yeah, and a lot of those facilities fall in as council facilities already. So typically they have on-site treatment, like filters and UV at the hall or the sports club or whatever it is, with a spring or rainwater. And places like Bonds, they've got a couple of 40,000 litre tanks out there.
We must just be aware, as soon as council starts giving larger tanks, we become responsible for the quality and drinking water safety. So it also would mean that we would have to do the testing, the monitoring, etc. So it's not just sponsoring a tank. It becomes an operational expense.
Good answer, thank you.
Can we come back to this when we've got the latest census data, perhaps?
I don't know. What we're roughly being told, correct me if I'm wrong, is we could do nothing until 2026, but where a problem arose, we could probably help with a tank that's 1 litre less than the size of the tank we have to test.
Anything we put in, we'd be up for.
If we put it in.
But
Okay.
in the case of Onuku, our operations staff were able to help with a bit of technical support, bit of advice, help organise the Mariah plumber to come out and fix the issues. So,
and it worked very well.
That worked really well.
Excellent. So we
If you
can
see the
emulate
problems with the plumber.
Yeah. Okay.
If there's any material differences as a result of the new census figures, we can let you know.
Yes, we will check it as soon as we have those.
Okay. Jake and then Sarah.
If there was a strong desire to enter into the public supply as opposed to the private solutions individuals have come up with, have we looked at, say, some options around special rates?
So a targeted rate.
Oh yeah, targeted rate. Yeah. Oh, so there's no. Okay. Well.
So to do that, what we're really saying is that would be the next level of planning. That would be at the stage where we would really have to be sure about the cost of the scheme, and then we are able, would be able to. We're far ahead of that point of understanding how to fund it if we haven't even done the engineering planning.
But it's an option if there was strong desire.
Yes, but in the past. Yes, in the past though, and from experience from previous servicing, there hasn't been a keen uptake for targeted rates kind of supplies. We've.
Oh, okay.
You do have the challenge. It's got a targeted rate attached. We build it, and then no one joins up.
Co-op Town is a good example.
Oh, the targeted rate would be. How do you mean? Sorry.
Co-op Town is a good example. There's water supply, but there's not a good uptake of it.
So they just stick with private supply.
Yes.
Yeah.
You still get rated for it if it's your desire as a community. Oh, okay. Okay.
You done, Jack? You done? Yeah. If we went all out and said, right, we're going to service all of this, like what you say on there, the money would generally come from replacing pipes in the city, I'd imagine.
It would come from.
It would have to come from somewhere. Put it that way. Okay, no, that's right. And just why? And Jake might have said it. I missed it. Why are we doing Kokarata if it's not? If it's on this list where we don't have to do it? And I'm not saying not do it. I'm just saying why.
It is actually a bigger bubble than the others because of the summer demand.
So Kokarata sits.
It's on the right hand.
I see it.
Blue bubble.
Yeah. The blue bubble's here. So
okay. No problem. Thank you. And so we've got Sarah and then Tyrone.
Yeah, mine was actually, I know we're talking about the census data and those kind of things, but the census I'm pretty sure was taken like during school holidays or something. And especially for some of these kind of populations on census day, like for some of those ones that might be sitting around 50 or 60, they could normally be 80 or 100, but at school holidays they went away. It's that kind of like if we just have got a ground truth thing, if we're going to use those.
So we've actually, Kylie, if you've seen the tables, we've actually counted the houses as well. So we haven't just based it on census.
Kokarata, for example, has like 63 dwellings, but only on the day had like less than 50 or something population. And it might just be that those families were away on holiday. So it might be, it's just if we're going to be using those specific numbers for large millions of dollars of decisions, I think we should just make sure that we got that. So yeah, the number's right.
And that's very much why we're at that scenario B. So looking at the number of houses and then assuming those houses are at a higher occupancy. What's the number then?
Yeah.
Because as you say, the census data is a bit.
So most of the figures are based on houses counted and not necessarily census. And that's why we also have the peak population estimates where we've factored that. Yes, agreed.
Yeah.
In the lieu of Mr. Mayor sitting in his chair, Tyrone.
I think it's my question. Yeah. So some general comments and maybe a question. So I think that you've got this about right. It looks good to me. Like I think what you've identified fits in with my gut feel. So we've already got a scheme for Port Levy and we've already got a scheme on budget for O'Kane's Bay. So, nothing to do there, right? So Kudo would be, in my view, next caveat off the rank. That's Greater Diamond Harbour effectively. So that makes sense. Just to comment just on the back of the census data and stuff, like Little is, it's batches, right? So people are there all the time, just not permanently necessarily. But
the weekend can be quite different to Tuesday.
Yeah, but it's not. That's right. But it's not a summer. Everyone comes in summer and goes. Like people are always there for a while. Just the other thing. Sorry, I just want to get some clarity because Sarah brought it up. Just that stretch round from Devonshire through Robinson's Bay round to Takamatua is on a reticulated system anyway, right? So, but that's the kind of the area
You're talking
of growth, I would say.
Just above the jetty on the hillside there.
What's that? Sorry,
you're talking that the row of batches just above the jetty there. Between
in Robinson's Bay. Yeah, you're on the promontory between.
So they're in the system as Hammond Point.
Yeah. So I mean, I guess that sort of that whole swathe from effectively from the Duvershell pub all the way round to the Robinson's Bay Wharf are kind of that's the growth area. I would say that would be my sense of where you'll get subdivisions and you'll get infill housing and that sort of stuff. I mean, so that's just my comment.
Yeah, so everything from the Devotional pub down to Robinson's Bay Valley Road is reticulated already. So if there's infilled housing in there or development, they're just going to hook into that scheme, which is a separate pot of problems. But certainly once you cross the bay and you're coming up the other side, you've got a big cluster of holiday houses. Therein is Hammond Point.
Yeah, okay. But I mean, apart from that, I think we've kind of landed
Point
on the
taken.
right
I think
strategy.
we will probably look at that area as Kylie mentioned as part of the Akarua scheme in any event.
I was just going to mention that it's, as you saw earlier today with the Three Waters presentation, there's a talk of linking up devotionals with the Akaroa scheme. So if we're trenching all that way, the team will look at the possibilities of throwing an extra pipe in the ground. At the same time. Yeah.
I mean, I could just imagine what that in 100 years' time, how many houses are going to be around there.
We're just trying not to mix them up.
Not.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Are we generally thinking that we push it out to 26? Is that generally the point that we're aiming towards?
Yes, that's really close.
Thank you. See you later.
Thanks, guys.
Concludes the public information session for today.